Are we streaming? Are we live?
Good question.
We don't know. Yay!
What's up, guys? Welcome to our Minecraft Let's Play.
Wait, it's super delayed though, so I need to look at OBS, I guess? Okay. I'm gonna look at OBS. What do I just click here? Yay! So I have no idea. Oh, maybe that's why people who live stream have two different screens. So they can see if anybody's watching and, okay, whatever. So as you saw, my son was in the screen. That's Joey. He's 13, just turned 13. He's over there on the computer right now. He's supposed to be doing his Japanese. He's homeschooled, and he's learning Japanese. I think he's done with Japanese. Otherwise, you might hear him shouting out Japanese phrases that he's learning. But without a 13-year-old, there's no way I would be able to live stream with you guys because it's not just as simple as clicking a live stream button, unfortunately, on YouTube. This is my first live stream. I've been making the shorts and posting a video here and there. Oh, he's watching me on TV. Hi. On the computer. But I've been trying to reach out because years and years ago, I wrote a book. It was the first gluten-free guidebook on the market way back in 2004. I've been having allergy issues, so I look a little weird. But anyway, way back in 2004, and I tried to start going gluten-free in 1997 because I was having a lot of health issues. And it was really hard because I don't bake, and so there were a lot of things that I didn't understand about flour and modified food starch and things like this. So finally, when I figured it out, it took me about 3 years, and then in 2004, I had my first son who just turned 19, and I'm going to move you over just a little bit. Uh-oh. Okay, so in 2004, I had my first son, and if you're old enough to remember, it was in the mid to late 90s where everybody started gaining weight. Remember that? And I had a son in 2004 and lost my weight immediately, and everybody was shocked and like, how do I do it? What am I doing? So I wrote the book eventually after writing it down on so many napkin notes and just word of mouth how I was doing it. And I wrote the Southern California Secret Diet Club. It's been through several editions. As I learned more and more, I would add stuff. And it's still available on Amazon for Kindle. But the world has come a long way, and I didn't really think that this information, that I needed to put out more information because there's so much information out there on the internet now about what the book is about, which basically comes down to anti-inflammatory lifestyle. But what I've learned is that it is now almost more difficult to figure out what to do because there's too much information out there. So what I teach, and you'll see the other videos that I have posted are about this, and that I have a digital course on snottybodies.com, and I call it Snotty Bodies because in the practice of Ayurveda, which is the lifestyle of the yogis, Qatar is the problem. That's what causes all of our health problems, and that is literally mucus. So we've got snotty bodies. Okay, so that's why you'll see snottybodies.com, and sometimes I talk about that. Once I realized that people were just super confused, and some of us, maybe who were born after, like in the 80s or 90s, have never had a fit and healthy body. It was mostly, for most people, it was the default who were born before the 80s. And 90s. But now we've got a whole generation who've never known a thin and lean body. And so I address that a lot. My course and my book is not about health food. It's not about radical restrictions of calories, fat grams, and carbs. I just don't do that. That is definitely not how I eat. And what I teach is how I eat, which is just anti-inflammatory, how to eat what you love while trading a couple of ingredients here and there to make it anti-inflammatory so that you're not constantly bloated, because that's really the problem. We're bloated. So you get rid of the bloat, and you can still eat burgers and tacos and all kinds of stuff. It's not a vegan diet, and it's not calorically restrictive either. But this video is about something completely different. Not only am I very passionate about helping people learn how to live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle and be the size they want. Weight doesn't necessarily correlate with size. I don't know. I last week or so I was 143 pounds and I'm a size 6. That just doesn't make sense. I'm not incredibly tall. I'm just average. But it's about size, not necessarily fat or weight loss. So know that going into it. But this video, my other passion is homesteading, which I don't have a homestead. I live in an apartment, hence my tiny little garden right behind me. It's tiny, but I am ready just in case I ever actually get a homestead and some land. So back here right now, I have these taller green things are shallots that are sprouting out of just water. This is aquaponic and hydroponic. I have hydroponic shallots, hydroponic little tomato sprouts that are ready to be planted. I've got a basil plant right here, and then on the other side of these blue bins, I have fish bowls with one betta fish each and plants, kale growing out of the top of them. I did have some garlic sprouts. But apparently after a while you have to plant those things in dirt. I'm not sure, I'm new to this, I don't have land, but I also have some compost ready to be put into a compost pile, but since, like I said, I live in an apartment, I do this sorry, that's my phone ringing, and I will turn the volume off. So, of course, as soon as I go live, my phone starts ringing. But I start by using the Mylar bags that dog food comes in. I'll show you. You know, these bags. This is how I do my compost. I have it next to my sink, and everything vegan, even cardboard like paper towel and toilet paper rollers and other cardboard that doesn't have dyes on it, I put in here. Coffee grounds, tea bags, beans and rice, anything vegan you can put into a compost. And so these are watertight. So my dogs go through a bag of this about every week to 10 days. And so then I replace it with another one, and I put the old one outside in a garbage bag so it doesn't stink up the neighborhood, because it was. So that's the thing about me, is that I'm not only am I into anti-inflammatory and helping you guys become anti-inflammatory and shrink and feel better, and it's not a health food diet, I promise you it's not. And then homesteading in an apartment, which one day hopefully you can see that transition out into a real piece of land. But with the world going absolutely insane, and in the past few years, not only have we seen the COVID lockdowns, we've seen the shortages of silly things like toilet paper. That did not freak me out at all. I took a nice quality, an old sheet that's a really nice soft quality, and I cut it into strips, and we had it in the bathroom, and the used strips would go into a bucket, and they would go into the laundry then. And we just constantly had wonderful toilet paper. I know people were using bidet type of contraptions, and some people actually were freaked out and hoarding toilet paper. That is not me. Simple solutions to, first world problems. But the problem we really face is food insecurity and food shortage. Remember when there were shortages of baby formula and people were freaking out because we are not a country of breastfeeders? I said it, breastfeeders. We are supposed to feed our babies from our own bodies, and this prevents them from starving to death. Now, my children went from average size to 90th percentile in the first month, and I had a very hard time keeping up. So I do feel for mommies who have a hard time breastfeeding. It is not just as simple. It not only sometimes can't you keep up, but it is so incredibly painful for some women. It's like having razor blades cutting you apart every time they latch on, and oh my gosh. So now that we've had so many issues and certain food shortages and supply chain issues, I was watching some changes come down the pike that really made me realize how much not having a garden puts us all at risk. What would we do if all of a sudden the supply chain, the food supply chain was cut off, the grocery store shelves were bare, and there were people starting to riot and loot, and I don't have a garden? This garden is not going to sustain us for more than about 12 hours, so we're screwed. So I researched, and what I found was, aside from just storing certain foods, for example, oatmeal, which if the electricity goes out and you have saved water, underneath here I'll show you. I have not only saved water in my freezer, in my refrigerator, but also under here. I save water. The water that's not kept in the refrigerator is actually for things like washing dishes and maybe even watering the dogs. It wouldn't necessarily be for human consumption. That's in the refrigerator. And every so often I dump those out and refill them with fresh water. I spray some hydrogen peroxide in the water, not only to neutralize the chlorine, but to just make sure the water is kept safe for human consumption. You can also have on hand your favorite protein powders. This will help you for a while. But does anybody remember way back when we were preparing for Y2K, we didn't know what was going to happen on Y2K with all of the digital clocks and digital things? Was the world going to shut down? And we were all freaking out. And I was in college at the time, and I did a study. That study showed that if you are saving food, you have to have a very, very wide variety of food if you go without groceries for a long time. If you're just stuck with what you have saved, your store of food. Because what can happen is you would get appetite fatigue if you eat the same thing too much. If you have 85 cans of Dinty Moore beef stew, after about can 20, your body will starve to death. It is like, I cannot eat another can of Dinty Moore beef stew. So that's what I learned. You have to have a wide variety. So eating everyday oatmeal or protein powder, eventually your body is going to stop. Your body will reject this food. You will not be able to eat it, and you will starve to death anyway. So that's a cautionary tale. But my main concern was, what do I do in the meantime if I have to grow a garden? Gardens take a long time to go from seed to harvest. You will starve during that period of time. What do? We can store food, and what I learned is you can go from seed to harvest in 5 days by making sprouts. And there's a ton of different kind of sprouts to make. I harvested these myself. And they last, when they're dry properly and you put them in the refrigerator, they last for quite some time. I was told 5 days, but I had some that lasted twice that long. Of course, when something is exposed to air and water and light, okay, those are the things that biodegrade everything: air, water, light. When they're exposed to air and water and light, which they're dry and they're in the refrigerator, so they're in the dark and they're cold, but they're still exposed to air, they lose their nutritional value over time, of course. So the older they are, the less nutritious they are. So you want to eat them quickly. Now, who wants to eat a bunch of sprouts? Not me. Not me. I tried. When I first started making sprouts, I tried to eat sprout sandwiches, and it was horrible. I tried to mix them up like I make kale with some oil and salt and some cheese, and that was more tolerable. It was actually pretty good. But what I actually do is I take a big handful of these and put them in my protein drink every day. So I get to go through those sprouts. And what I learned is that these sprouts, I grow them in a jar, and I'll show you how I do that. If you grow them on a pan, like a flat pallet, they grow straight up, and this is 5 days after seed to harvest. This is 5 days. Another 5 days will give you microgreens, which then these little sprouts become thicker stalks, and the leaves become bigger leaves. They're really good. And I'll show you which one I use. This is the salad mix. Okay. Now, I actually think I would like just straight radish or straight arugula because I love that peppery spiciness. But to put in smoothies and to hide it other places, let's say you're going to have a burger or something like that, you can put it on top. So good for you. So good for you. And certain sprouts are actually going to help to remineralize your teeth and keep your teeth healthy because your teeth get the calcium from your blood. Your blood gets the nutrition from your food. So if you have poor dental health, you want to really start eating things that will remineralize your teeth. And I found the best way to do that in small quantities is sprouts, because when something is brand new, like a baby, it has the most nutritional value, the most potential that it will ever have. This sprout has up to 100 times the nutritional value of its large adult counterpart. So the wonderful thing is you eat fewer of these for more nutrition. Oh, they're so good. It's the truth. My son's looking at me like I'm crazy. So I'm going to show you really quick what I did, because you can grow sprouts and greens in any old kind of way, in jars, on pallets. But this is what I'm going to try to hold this up without dropping it. So I got this from Amazon. It's got this great little metal holder, and it's got these fantastic little jars. And what you just saw, that quantity of sprouts right there came out of one jar, and I've used some of them. And this is nice. I learned about these tops from Stacy on Doug and Stacy, Homesteading with Doug and Stacy, or Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I love them. Love Doug and Stacy. So this goes right on the top so that the air can get up into the jar while your seeds are sprouting. But what I love about this, and it comes on the metal thing, and it has a tray under it, and it holds it at an angle. But what I love is you don't have to stick these in the dark in your cupboards, because I would totally forget about them. They come with these black koozies. So the first day, you put in 3 or 4 tablespoons of your seeds, and you put it with water, put your little koozie over the top of it like this, and you just sit it out for 24 hours, right? It's in the darkness because you've got the koozie on top. So you put your seeds, you put your water, and they say, filtered water. I haven't gotten to the point of having a filter. I'm looking into it. I need a reverse osmosis filter, but I neutralize the chlorine with my peroxide and use that. I'll use some of the water or let it sit out with the top off so that it gets rid of some of the junk. And that just works just fine. I have had no problems with them growing very well. Day 1, it's just the seeds in the water. Day 2, you dump out the water, and then you rinse it twice. You rinse, put the water in right through here. You don't have to take the cap off. And then you do it 2 times. And once you dump the water out, you'll have the black koozie on there still, but you want to kind of rotate and spin your jar so the seeds sort of stick to the glass, so they're dispersed a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put this koozie on here if I can without making a huge mess of myself. Okay. Okay, this is what it would look like. My nose running. I've been sneezing it all morning. So, let me find, here we go. this is the tray. I love this thing. This is the tray. I'll put a link to this product on Amazon. It's so awesome. And it literally holds the jars like this because you want the air to get up in there, but you want the water to drain out. And it holds 2 jars. Right now I'm drying basil in this. I'm not making sprouts this second because I have plenty of sprouts. And I only made 1 jar. I was making 2 jars, but then I was having to throw away a bunch of sprouts because there's no way that we can eat that many sprouts right now. So you then, on day 3, you put more water in here, drain it, put more water in here, drain it. So you're gonna drain it 2 times and then put it back on here, okay? Day 4, if it's full of sprouts, maybe it would take day 4 or day 5, but day 4 usually, this thing is packed full of sprouts. And you do it again, you drain it twice, but then you take off the koozie and just set it like this in a window that doesn't have direct sunlight. And it will turn green. Your sprouts are gonna have yellow leaves, but exposing them to the sunlight, diffuse sunlight, brings out that chlorophyll and they'll start to turn green. And you do that day 4 and day 5. And after day 5, you pull them out and dry them. I just put them in the sun. I actually save my single-use plastic containers that we sometimes collect from restaurants and whatever. This is actually from El Pollo Loco. I mean, this is a nice big plastic container. It's perfect. And so I'll just put my sprouts right in here and put it on that rack so that it's facing the sun, and I can kind of stir them up and get them exposed to the sunlight and they turn nice and green. I saw, people have different methods for taking off the hulls. Do you see all that brown, those brown things in there? Those are the hulls that the sprouts actually sprout out of. And Stacy uses a salad spinner. Some people soak their sprouts and then these things float to the top and they skim them off. But they're soft. And I would imagine they're a good source of just fiber. So because I'm making smoothies mostly, I just blend them up in my smoothie. I'm sure there's nothing bad about them. I mean, even if I'm going to eat them, a lot of them do fall right to the bottom. You'll see they just collect in the bottom. So I don't mind them. I'm sure there's nothing toxic about them. And like I said, it's just going to be extra fiber is my guess. And man alive. This is my business phone. It's ringing like crazy. I don't know why. Text me, people. Text me, people. Okay, got to keep an eye on the business phone. So that is how I discovered you can keep your family from starving to death if there's a food supply shortage, the shelves are all bare, and you're not quite there with the whole garden situation. And whereas packaged foods, even the highest quality protein powders and rice and oatmeal and things like that, survival foods, do they really have the right enzymes and the nutrition that you're looking for? My guess is no. Hard no to that. Can you use supplements? I use a ton of supplements. I love the digestive enzymes with the pre and probiotic. I use the fizzy sticks that are like B vitamins and other things. But there's nothing that's going to sustain you like live food. So that is where these come in until your garden comes in, if you want to garden. And if you don't want to garden, don't garden. Man, that was a radish sprout. Those are so incredibly good. The other thing is, and I would like to do a live about this or just a video, I'm not sure. So I checked in with my community on the Nextdoor website to find out who I can buy eggs from, who I can buy beef from instead of the stores, because our egg supply, our beef supply, our meat, everything, it's all tainted, and I just don't want to. Ooh, that's so good. Those are the big leaves, are the radish sprouts. I just love them so much. So, yummy. So today, I'm gonna go pick up a dozen farm fresh eggs for $5. They're organic, they're amazing, and I'm happy to support a local farmer. So that is my next step. This was my step about a month ago. I just learned how to do this. Maybe 2 months ago, I just learned how to do this. So aside from talking to you guys about anti-inflammatory and homesteading, which I don't do, I'm not the homesteader guru by a long shot. I just want to homestead. So I'm constantly watching the other homesteaders, and I love it. I love to have chickens and other animals and a huge garden. But if you don't have that, this is definitely the way to go to keep your family from starving to death. If you have any tips and tricks like that, definitely leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear. I've tried fermenting. I'm going to have to revisit that. I tried to do kombucha. I tried to ferment veggies, and I'm just not there yet. The fermented veggies, just the idea of it just kind of didn't work for me psychologically. It sort of turned my stomach, and I'm going to have to try again. But the fresh garden food definitely is something that I'm more apt to do. There's Puppy. Hey, Puppy. Hi, Puppy. That's Buddy. And like I have a fresh basil plant. I have a hard time growing basil, so I'm just taking those leaves and drying them out in one of my my sprouting jars, because it has the air, so it's going to dry out really nicely. Now I'm also in Nevada, so it's very dry here. I don't know, maybe in Florida I'd have an easier time keeping the plant alive. I've always had a hard time with basil. But I'm very excited about my tomato sprouts, and I'm not quite sure what to do with them other than plant them in dirt, which I'm trying to grow things aquaponically and hydroponically. So if you know how to do that, definitely leave a link or a comment in comments so that I can follow up with you. We're all learning together. I'm not here to preach to you. I just have a certain knowledge base and skill set that hopefully will help everyone that needs to drop the bloat and survive if there's a food shortage. So that's my story. And until I know something different, I'm sticking to it. And I guess that's it. I'm curious what comments there might be. Oh, wow. Just a super ton of comments. Yeah. I mean, like, overloaded with comments. Joey, I cannot believe you flipped people off. Oh my God. I did not know he was going to do that. That's why we don't have any viewers. All right. Well, thanks for not joining in, everybody. I love you. I love my son too, but he's a little 13-year-old and apparently needs a little discipline today.